to the cloud. All right, so good afternoon and welcome everybody to our first ever inaugural Power Hour, where we are discussing today's latest and greatest hot topics in career and technical education. And I have put, so today I've just picked some hot topics that have been coming across our desk. We are welcome to get off topic and change the discussion and talk about anything that is of interest to you guys, but I thought I'd just start with a few basic things that kind of affect everybody. Oftentimes we get into career and tech ed meetings or meetings with different groups. You know, sometimes it's teachers and sometimes it's counselors and sometimes it's principals, and people go, well, I wish I would have known that sooner. Or you talk to counselors about that, but you don't talk to teachers about that. And if I had known that, then I could have done X, Y, and Z. So this is kind of an attempt to make sure that everybody has a little bit of access to all of the information and all the pieces that kind of make up our office and why we do what we do. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about CTE data and state course codes. We can talk about grant funding and programs of study, but those may be topics for another time. Just kind of depends on what you guys might want to discuss as well. Now if I can figure out how to change my slides. Oh, there we go. So our first topic that I kind of had was on CTE data, talking about the school report card and the Perkins data. As you may be aware, career and technical education and those enrollments are now a part of your school district's report card. They were a part of the school district report card last year, and they will be a part of this year's published report card in October. Your administrators in your district currently have access to the preliminary data for your for those report cards. Let me see if my next screen here. So where would you kind of find some of that? I went, Mattoon's our local district, so I went to the Illinois school report card sheet, and there's, if you check under academic progress, you will see career and technical education, that button on the left-hand side. And then there's these drop downs here for enrollments. So this first screen, and this will be last year's school report card, says that there were 621 students enrolled in at least one CTE course. That's awesome.
That is.
Now, is that a duplicated number or is that a non-duplicated number? I'm sorry, I don't know all of those details. I think, as with all great things that the Illinois State Board of Education tries to do, their data is not always the most accurate, but this is the data that we go by. And then when you get onto this screen with your school district's information, you can keep clicking here. This says Perkins measures. If you hear our office talk about our grants, Perkins is one of our large grants, and that's how a lot of our school districts receive some of the funding to improve their career and tech ed labs. As the grant writing entity for the Perkins grants, we have certain performance measures as an EFE that we have to meet, and some of those include your school's report card Perkins measures as well. Your graduation rates. Is our EFE helping your students to graduate high school? Well, you know, in our world of CTE, my spiel would be that career and tech ed is an interesting program, and that keeps students engaged in the classroom and helps them to graduate. So I'm hoping that by helping your CTE teachers, we're going to help your students graduate high school. If you click on these, it'll also talk about special population students, and those special population students, do they have IEPs? Do you have students with 504 plans? Do you have economically disadvantaged students? Do you have young women taking your construction trades classes, you know, the non-traditional enrollments? All of those measures will pop up on your school report card. And those are all measures that our office sees in our annual data and that we try to address through our activities and the support we provide to your school districts. Now, if some of our smaller schools may have no data reported or no data collected in those boxes, it's my understanding that if you have 10 students or less, that maybe you've got 10 students or less with that are economically disadvantaged that are taking a career and tech ed class, then your data may not be pulled because that would allow for that, to keep the students unidentifiable and secret. So that's a little bit about the data. So a lot of the some of the other activities and things that we'll talk about in these Power Hour sessions will include some of what do those Perkins measures mean? What are some things can we do to improve them? If you attend some of these other Power Hours, and I don't want to get into too many details, we do a local needs assessment. Some of those data measures have to be addressed, and we have to talk to our schools about activities that you're doing to support those students as part of your local needs assessment. So they all kind of go hand in hand. Does anybody have any specific questions that they want to talk about the school report card? Do you want to look at some of those buttons, or probably not? Look at it on your own. Call me and cry later. So the next topic will be the state course codes. I did not recopy this link, but it's on the State Board of Education CTE PROG study. It's where I go anytime anybody says, hey, Laura, can I change what classes I'm teaching at the high school? My school district would really like for me to teach CAD, or my school district would really like for me to teach computer hardware, or something like that. And this is where I go to help school districts, teachers, counselors determine what classes to teach. When you go to the ISB website, there's a blue button that says CTE Programs of Study. Let's just walk through it. I did pull it up. When you click on the link that I just gave you, the isbe.net pages.cte program PROG study, it takes you to this page. This is the page I really primarily go for anything that has to do with state course codes or state course descriptions. And these are the pages that I go to when I'm helping an individual fill out their paperwork for a CTE teaching license when they haven't been trained as a regular teacher. When I go to look at the programs, I go to CTE program matrices, and the one I just gave in the example slides was for architecture and construction. ISB just updated all of these, and these are all of the approved programs that ISB recognizes for teaching classes at the high school level. So for instance, I know Jacob is on here. He teaches in the construction trades program. When we talk about the program, we also talk about the SIP code. That's this 4600.000. Let me zoom in. And then this also talks about what the teacher licensure should look like. If they have a regular Pell, is it for technology education? Or do they have the CTE license, the educator license with stipulations with architecture, construction, trades, whatever the R means, for that cluster. When we get a teacher that's approved to teach in construction trades, for example, they can teach any of the classes in the column. When ISB's looking to do a teaching license, they look for the skills courses only. Those are also known as Group 3. When we talk about program approval through our office, you have to teach one class in a Group 3 and one class that's in either a Group 1 or Group 2. So when we talk about classes and changing classes, I will look, well, who's teaching the class? Do you teach a Group 3 in that program? Or do you, if you have two industrial tech teachers, maybe one of them's teaching it and the other one's not. So it could be an either or, as long as it's within the district. And then I look to see what other classes are also being taught and to make sure you have at least one in a group 1 and one in a group 2. To throw out a fun fact, I'm hearing that and I'm moving into the next topic already, I'm hearing that when we talk about the funding for CTE classes and the funds that are generated for your career and tech ed programs, I'm hearing that group 1 classes are not going to count. I'm giving some pushback on that because if ISB thinks they're important enough to put in a matrix, I think they should be important enough to be funded. You guys are teaching the classes, students are taking them, you have to introduce students to the topics in some fashion. So why are all of a sudden group 1 classes not important? So that was Laura's soapbox. I will probably have many of those. I haven't seen anything in writing, and I did point that out to ISB, and my suggestion was to keep all of the classes at a fundable level. So as we continue these discussions, we will look for ways to maybe get, if that becomes the case for the grant funding, we'll ask schools to only teach classes in group 2 and above. So 2, 3, 4, and possibly 5 as the workplace experience. The new matrix is good in that it also shows us the state course codes, real handy, as long as they're correct. It also identifies, you'll see all these fun yellow and blue boxes. ISB has also identified which classes may possibly be approved for a science credit at your school district, a math credit, or an English language arts. Now, it's not that easy to get that kind of approval because it would have to be approved through your school board. And it may also have to, you may also have to send letters to your families of the students who are enrolled in those classes because your teacher's not licensed for science, math, or English language arts in most cases. So some schools just don't want to do that, but that could be a possibility, which may help some of our smaller schools down the road with graduation requirements and all of that. So the first couple of pages are the matrix. And then the following pages will be the state course codes, the titles, and then those course descriptions. We do ask that when you're teaching classes and trying to align your classes at the high school to maybe a state course code, that you're teaching at least 50% of the content that is included in that course description. As you know, we have many small schools and there may only be one industrial tech teacher, one family consumer science teacher, however that may be. So you may try to squeeze in a couple of topics into one class. And that is the kind of those guidelines around that, teaching at least 50% of the course description content. The group 5 is the workplace experience courses. That is what is formerly known as co-op, placing students in the workplace. If you're teaching a co-op class, there are different codes for every job placement possibly. ISB is wanting us to find codes that would align with the duties of the student. If you were to call and ask me what to use, I would say use a course code that is in line with the teacher's endorsement. What are they teaching? So if it's a business teacher that's teaching the co-op class and placing students, use a code that's in the business program. I would also suggest using codes that are only aligned to those programs that you are teaching in your school, because that's how those funds will be generated back to your school district. So for instance, it's no secret, a lot of our students may work fast food and also count that as a co-op work credit. You would align if they were working on the grill and they primarily cook food, I would put them in the culinary arts workplace experience area, because a lot of our school districts do teach culinary arts. If they were working in the front as a cashier, customer service, I'd line that up with entrepreneurship, because most of our school districts do have a CEO program or other entrepreneurship program that they participate in the region. Regional opportunities all work together for the program approval and for the funding, or a business management or something along those lines. When we talk about the workplace experience codes, if you see here, looking across all of the programs, architecture and construction is listed multiple times. I would use that code because it appears in multiple places, and then that's the fewer codes that you are using at your school district. It would save lots of data reporting. Do we have any questions about program matrices, course codes, course descriptions? Okay, you guys are an easy crowd tonight. So if you're changing any classes, we do ask that you give us a call and we will make sure that they fall within those guidelines. The flip side of that is also, you guys, your school district does course uploads where you take all of the students and they're in their course codes and their sections and all of that. And all of that information is imported into SIS, the Student Information System at the state. We have our backside of SIS called our state course system, and our EFE's SIS course system is connected to your school district. So that's why we need to know about course changes and what state course codes you are using so that we can approve them on our side. And that's how your butts and seats and your report card data is all generated. So talking about the school report card data and those Perkins measures and talking about state course codes, how can we maximize grant funding? We want you to use the correct course codes. My rule of thumb was always when we talk about career and tech ed classes, that CTE classes end in a number, not a 0. But I've heard that is now a lie because they're starting to take some academic classes and give them 1s and 2s. Which makes that a little bit confusing. But at this point in time, all CTE classes will end in a number, not a 0. The only time you would use a course code that is a CTE related would be if you have a teacher that is not a CTE teacher teaching the class. So we have had, maybe if it's a special ed teacher teaching an introduction to business class, and they are not a business teacher, that would be an example of when we would use a state course code that does not end in a number. But in order for it to be funded, it should be a CTE class, which would appear on those matrices. For the grant funding, you would want to meet the program approval guidelines. That's a group 1 or 2 and 1 class in a group 3. When I say a class, right at this point in time, it could be a semester in length, or it could be a full year. When we talk about classes and your course codes, oftentimes we'll have discussions with teachers and counselors on if you're teaching the class as a full year class, maybe it's an accounting class and it's a full year class. But you're not teaching technically an accounting 2 class. Can we call semester 1 accounting 1 and the second semester accounting 2? That hits on bullet number 4 here with participant versus concentrator. When ISBE's working on creating a new formula for funding career and tech ed classes. Our office has received level funding for the last several years. ISBE is trying to work with the state legislature to receive additional funding to support career and tech ed classes. ISB is arguing that we have more CTE students, that our career centers throughout the state need additional funding for their programs to upgrade labs and equipment, for maybe even building maintenance. And so ISB's looking to the data to try and get more money into our line items. Our EFE, each individual EFE, we receive money based upon the enrollments in our school districts. Perkins is based on population and poverty. We know our population in our region is low and our poverty is high. But we want to make sure our student data is always correct when reporting that into SIS. And then we want to help our schools to increase the number of students in your programs, which increases the number of participants. Participants are those students who are taking one CTE class. That will be funded at level 1. I don't know how else to describe that. And then concentrators will be funded at a higher level. So they will receive more money. Concentrators are students who take 2 classes in a program. So we were just talking about the architecture program. No, here we go. We were just talking about the architecture program. So a participant would be students who may take foundations of technology and construction trades. That student would be considered a concentrator, and that should be any 2 classes within their high school career. Now, does that student get funded for that once? Or does that student get funded multiple times? I have no idea. But the State Board of Education is looking for ways that students may find a program of study throughout high school. That they're taking a sequence of classes that lead to skills that would lead to valuable employment and or post-secondary education in a program. So if a student takes an ag class and takes construction trades, that student is only a participant because one class fell into the agriculture program and one class fell into industrial technology. We would look for students to take multiple agriculture classes in order to be a concentrator, or multiple industrial technology classes. Well, I say that like that. It would, when I talk agriculture, it'd be horticulture classes, or agriculture construction, or animal science is a program. It's not just ag. So if we have a student that's taking a welding class and a student that is taking construction, those 2 are 2 classes that fall in different programs, and that student would not be considered a concentrator. I know that is really kind of dumb. But I sometimes know that when we have these conversations with counselors or teachers, they don't know that and can't guide students to take certain classes. So we're hoping that by doing some of these power hours and maybe talking about state course codes and course selection, that maybe we can help clear some of that up. We just talked a little bit about the school report card and that data. That data goes hand in hand with the college and career readiness indicators. I am not an expert on those college and career readiness indicators, but I know the guidance counselors are familiar with them and are doing everything they can to make sure their data is accurate, so that students are receiving the recognition they deserve for any academic achievements in the CCRI. When we talk about the program approval and the sequence of classes, we talk about the making sure that the teacher is licensed to teach what they're teaching. Sometimes we do have CTE teachers that are new to their positions, and they are teaching classes that they are not licensed to teach in. Maybe it's because, well, we've had this class and we've always had this class and we're forever going to have this class, and I have to have somebody to teach it. See, one of those classes is quite possibly a computer hardware class that's taught in one of our local districts. They just hired a new CTE teacher for that program. that teacher is not licensed to teach computer hardware. Computer hardware falls under information technology, and they're an industrial tech teacher. So if they're going to continue to teach the class, they just cannot request and or use any EFE money to support that program. So, however, right now with the new CTE teacher licensure rules, ISB is allowing teaching experience to count as work hours to add endorsements to CTE licenses. The caveat is that you cannot have a licensed substitute teacher in the classroom. They cannot substitute teach and earn hours to get a CTE teaching license. They have to have some sort of a qualification to get an educator license with stipulations. So if we have, like that teacher that's teaching in industrial technology, she is a licensed engineering instructor, and there's something else and I'm blanking. If she continues to teach computer hardware, we can count those hours up and she can try and add that to her ELS license. So Jacob may be kind of in the same boat if he's teaching welding, or no, I think you have the welding experience, but if you're teaching it, we could use those hours and to add that license later. Now, Angie, I'm not sure about your question. Is funding affected if a newly hired teacher is a non-traditional teacher and working on obtaining their certification?
I am referring to one of our new business teachers who does not have teacher certification at all. I know that he's worked with you on starting that process. So
Yeah.
the courses that he's teaching, are we receiving funding for those?
That Manuel?
Yes.
He has his license.
Okay.
His license was approved in like 2 days.
Okay.
It's phenomenal. Yeah. Entrepreneurship. And maybe marketing, I think, were his endorsement areas.
Okay, good.
But if if you hired a new teacher to teach your business classes, you'd get them into the classroom with a sub license. They would not earn hours until they earned a CTE license. The CTE license for a non-traditional teacher, like Jacob, is based upon hours of work experience, paid or unpaid. And they are also counting any work hours that you may have done as a student teacher, as a grad assistant. They were counting those as well. 60 hours of college credit, 2,000 hours for the first endorsement area, and then 1,000 hours for each endorsement area after that. So if we have a teacher that wants to teach construction trades and welding, we would look at their work history and count up how many hours they might have in both of those areas on the job, and then write up their work history so that they could get endorsed in both areas. And then, like I said, if you are teaching, then we could add hours later to it for an additional endorsement areas. And then, of course, one of the biggest ways right now with the new formula funding to increase money into your school districts would be to increase your course enrollments. We are looking for different ways that we can help do that. Obviously, if we can help our school districts improve their CTE labs by buying new equipment, by buying supplies and materials, helping you guys to get organized and have a nice looking shop, that benefits our students and our teachers. If we can hold professional development activities that help increase the skills of our CTE teachers, where you're doing neat and new and state-of-the-art projects with your students that you can showcase to the student body, to your community, to parents, that's going to increase awareness and should increase your butts and seats in that recruitment process. We also have the wonderful Courtney Conlon in our office, who is a master at social media, and she is working on and has pretty much completed her social media marketing workshop. And we hope to do some social media training with CTE teachers as well. I think we've decided to maybe piggyback that onto a CTE roundtable that we'll hold in the spring. Where Courtney will kind of give some tips and tricks on how to recruit students through social media. And again, a lot of it's just awareness. I didn't know my high school had that. Or, our parents are oftentimes a huge influence on our students and what classes they take at the high school level. Well, if it wasn't there at their high school, we know it doesn't exist now, right? Wrong. You guys are doing amazing things in our schools. I just don't think it's promoted as much as it really could be. So, are there any specific topics or questions that you guys have that that we can help you with? That I can answer now or later or ideas you want to bounce off of each other? I didn't realize we had a nice crew here. Can't see really how many people are on.
Laura, in one of your upcoming power hours, will you address at all any information on career pathways or pathway endorsements and any changes?
I just stuck that as a possible hot topic for next time.
Okay.
Yeah. There is just so much being thrown at me right now with programs of study. That's kind of been I've got a big report to do on programs of study in our region, and that is looking at elements of size, scope, and quality within programs in our school. So that's going to be one of those little things on helping our schools to improve. Those data elements that are in programs of study with the size, scope, and quality directly align with the college and career pathway endorsements. And some of those activities. But yes, I do hope to do some more with the college and career pathway endorsements. And Larry's our college and career pathway endorsement consultant for the region. And we may see if we don't need to do just some couple hour, 2 hour, 3 hour workshops in our region where maybe everybody can get together and either work on their applications or discuss some of those data elements for those CCPE requirements.
Say, Angie, that Career Pathways user group from Northern Illinois University, they'll have their first hour-long presentation next Friday, the 15th at 9 a.m.
I have it on my calendar.
All right.
It would be nice to be able to see what other schools in our area have started on career pathways and pathway endorsements, just to kind of bounce ideas off of one another, just to see who has started the process. When we have questions, we could reach out to those people.
Sure. So far, we've had 2 applications. McLean made one from Lyft last spring, and that application was for childcare. Sat down with Lori Gear and McLean Schaefer to submit that. That's still, for lack of a better term, in the queue. The other was Kyle Ladd from Shelbyville, principal at Shelbyville, on the conservation program that they have, and it's kind of a little co-op with Shelbyville and Cowden-Herrick and some of the other smaller schools around that area. So I need to touch base with Kyle to see if he's heard anything more. Laura and I were talking the other day, and my guess is they may be pushing pause a little bit on this platform that they're currently using, that PWR, which is the application platform, because they're going to be moving to IWAS sometime this fall. And they've said all along it's supposed to be seamless, but my guess is that won't be seamless, and it probably is best for them to wait until they get to IWAS before we get too far ahead of ourselves. But I wouldn't use that as an excuse not to continue barreling forward. So we'll see where those 2 applications go, but we can certainly do these kinds of Google Meets with those folks who have who have begun, and maybe we can learn from one another. Also, we have a couple of I have a couple of colleagues, one from the Peoria Career Center, another from the Springfield Career Center, and recently a new coordinator from the Bloomington Career Center has jumped on board. So we're going to be meeting later this month too, and two of those three folks have had some of their pathways approved by ISBE. So we've got some resources out there as we move forward. I'm touching base with Kristen Holly later this month on, she's just going to give me a tour of some of your new facilities and construction over there at Charleston, and chat a little bit about your education pathway.
Yep, that was another one I was going to ask about as well. We were approved for the educators pathway grant. And so we're looking at partnering with anyone or just anyone who has started that process that might be able to help out. And then the Educators Rising program, I did reach out to Laura. You had told me that it's free for a few more months, I think until November 1st. So I did reach out to someone. They've already sent me the link to fill out the contract. And so we can at least try it out for now while it's free and see what it all entails.
Okay, good. I didn't get that information. I did get the feedback that schools could have it for a year. Either you signed up last year and didn't use it, you could use it then this year. So that's good. Good to know, Angie. Thanks. And you were asking about the education pathway grant. Kyle Ladd at Shelbyville High School. They also have an approved educator pathway grant. The flip side to that is that they are allowing Lakeland College to come in and teach those classes at this point. Where I'm not sure if you're going to use your own instructors.
We haven't gotten that far. I'm not sure yet.
Okay. Well, that's why you have a planning year, right?
Also, Angie, you probably got information from Laura. The Champaign EFES up there's inviting area CTE directors to those three roundtables that they have in the middle of this month.
Yep, I'm already signed up.
Okay. What day are you going?
Well, it's 3 days in a row. Well, our FCS teachers, I believe, if they registered, are going on Tuesday the 12th. Myself and our two business teachers will go on the 13th, and then all three of our ag industrial tech teachers are going on the 14th.
Okay, I think our office have those 3 dates covered as well. I think I'm going to go with the FACS teachers, and I think Courtney's on the next day with business, and Laura's the last day. Is that correct, Laura?
Yep, I'll be there with the industrial tech teachers and ag teachers. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Good.
Well, our area will be well represented.
Yeah, that's awesome. We're all in this together. So yes, in the future, we do, maybe we'll talk a little bit more in depth about programs of study and the data elements for size, scope, and quality. Those go directly hand in hand with the college and career pathway endorsements, as well as those Perkins measures. We'll also talk a little bit more again about advisory boards. State Board of Education is really pushing advisory boards. We've talked in our office and kind of brainstormed some ideas on regional advisory boards, but our region is just so big. How do we invite all of our schools, you know, if we have an industrial technology advisory board meeting for the region, how do we invite 25 school districts, industrial tech teachers, and business partners that represent all 8 counties that we serve? The best way to achieve a high quality advisory board is for every school district to have their own. Then you've got a core group of local community members, local parents, your students, maybe even alumni, that could be a core support group for your program. It'd be more likely for somebody from your community to provide provide some funds, donations, or used equipment if you had your own advisory board that was local to you. So we'll see what we can kind of maybe we can partner a little bit with Lakeland College or even Lyft, who's doing some advisory boards. we're just tossing around some ideas, but again, like I said, the best way to have a good, high quality advisory board is for each district, to kind of have their own. And whether it would be one advisory board that would cover all CTE or, advisory boards for each CTE area, a family and consumer science advisory board and an industrial tech advisory board, an agriculture board, and something like that. And you'd only need to have an advisory board meeting once. And I do believe we have some resources on our website on how to start your advisory board and maybe even what a sample agenda might look like for advisory board meetings. I think we'll also talk a little bit in the future about career guidance and career assessments. One of the data elements for college and career pathway endorsements is having some sort of a career assessment. We can't tell kids what programs they'd be good in to work in if they haven't taken an assessment to kind of tell us that information. So as you guys may be aware, our office has purchased Career Cruising for the last several years for all of our school districts to utilize. Career Cruising is old. It is no longer being updated. And there are many new top of the line products that are being used out there, and our office is looking into different ways to get access and get free access for our schools for something new that everybody can utilize. So hopefully within the next month or so, we'll have some more information on that and could share possibly some good news on a possible new career assessment platform for our districts. Other hot topics. Oh, there's always something that's a hot topic that crosses my desk. And then of course, whatever you guys may need us to cuss and discuss in an afternoon, we would always be happy to do that. So. Anybody else got anything?
Laura, I just wanted to share, and you probably know this, but you had mentioned the advisory boards for CTE and how that would be a lot to have one for our entire region. And last year, as we started working on career pathways at Charleston High School, we actually took the 7 career pathways the state has and made them 8. We pulled education out of the human and our health and human services, or whatever that pathway is.
Yep.
I think I'm saying it wrong, but and so we found people from the community, including Eastern and Lakeland, in those different industries, and pulled them together for advisory meetings. And we held 2 of those for every one of those pathways last year, and it was very well received. We wanted to gather their input so that as we work more on our career, college and career pathway endorsements, that they would have some input and just know that the endorsements are a thing. So it was something that went very well, and I would think that within each district would probably be best, rather than trying to do something regionally.
That's great, Angie. We may pick your brain or have you lead a session on that. Because certifications are another one of those hot topics at the State Board of Education. And that's obviously one of those big data elements with the college and career pathway endorsements, is they want everybody, all students who graduate in a program, to have some sort of a certification. Well, what's your local business and industry need? What somebody in Effingham County could be completely different than somebody in Edgar County. And I mean, that's great. That's awesome to have that feedback and those business partners that you could just reach out to at any time to collect that feedback too. All right, well, I won't keep anybody. If that was a lot of information. Nice heavy session for a Thursday afternoon, but we will try this again next month. I do believe it is on October 12th. We'll try 3:30 to 4:30 again. It should be the exact same Zoom link as we utilized today. That was my personal meeting room ID. So that should not change. And I see several people on here, so hopefully we'll see everybody in a couple of weeks at the Construction Trades Expo out at the Coles County Airport. A nice, fast and fulfilling start to the school year. So, thank you, everybody, for coming today.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you. Thank you.
You guys, stop recording.